Mark, for me, is becoming more and more exciting. And it's not like I haven't heard these stories before. We talked about it a few weeks ago when little Sammy was here, our 4-year-old friend. He knew the whole story of feeding the 5,000. I mean, he knew all the loaves and fishes and what happened, all the baskets left over. So it's not like I'm learning something new as I'm reading through Mark. I'm just seeing it from the perspective of life that I'm at now, and it's different than when I was 4 years old. It was cool to learn when I was 4 years old, but now I'm going, wow, this is pretty intense. This is a God that really cares about people. This is a God that's going out of his way to not only prove that he's God, because that was a purpose for Mark to show that Jesus was the Messiah, and to show it quickly. It was immediate. We'll say that. I'll use that every week because Mark uses that word, immediacy. There is this immediacy about the message of the gospel that Mark portrays. It was the first gospel message that was ever recorded about Jesus. And so he wants everyone to know that Jesus is the Messiah. He is the Son of God. And these stories are just one right after the other. Tonight, we're going to go through a bunch of stories that are just one right after the other that we all know, but taken in the context of what Jesus is trying to accomplish, it still has meaning for us today. And for me, it has some direct meaning. And so I entitled this, Help My Unbelief. And we've heard this before. I believe, Lord, but help my unbelief. So we're going to talk about that story, and I'm going to string that one verse throughout these several verses that we're looking at today in chapters 8 and 9. So the first slide I entitled, Knowledge Can Get You in Trouble. Now we live in an age where we live in this information age, and we talked a little bit about it, Instagram, Facebook, but truly there's more information available to us today than any other time in human history. And for you younger guys, you've already learned probably more than your parents will ever know, or at least have access to that information and have had at least glanced over it, and will probably learn more and more and more and more than we can fathom. The jobs that will be available in the future are beyond conception right now. So what you guys are going to be doing 20, 30 years from now are beyond what we can even imagine. So there's that much information going on. But knowledge in and of itself can get you in trouble. We can all know the right answers. If I ask, for instance, we were at a Bible study this Tuesday, and I asked a basic Bible question. Well, anyone in the room probably could have rambled on for a little while and given the correct biblical answer. And we would all say, yeah, that's the right answer. So what? What difference does it make? So knowledge in and of itself makes no difference. So that's what I wanted to look at today. We believe, but we need help with our belief. But who do you say that I am? This was Jesus asking his disciples. Peter, always chiming in first, says, you are the Christ. And then Jesus warned him not to tell anyone about that truth that was revealed to him. He said, you've revealed that truth. That truth has been revealed to you. You didn't come up with that. That's been given to you. So that's knowledge that's been given to you by God. And yet, within just a few moments, Jesus turns and has another conversation with Peter, and Peter has this special knowledge of who Jesus is right now. He knows who he is. He's the Messiah. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. So here's Peter. He knows that this guy's God, and yet he's still got to fix him or rebuke him or correct him. Now, did that knowledge do Peter any good at all, to know that that was God that he was talking to? I don't know. If I knew someone was God, I don't think I would try to correct him. But, we can't really blame Peter for too much, because we're pretty much all in the same boat with Peter, I'm afraid. But turning around and seeing his disciples, Jesus rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are not setting your mind on God's interest, but man's." So again, Peter, we talked in the last couple of weeks, was kind of bought into this Herodian Jewish king that Jesus was supposed to be. He was supposed to come in and take over the nation of Israel and run all the Romans out and rule by power and might and all that stuff. And gold and riches, and everybody was going to live happily ever after. Wouldn't that kind of be the way that we would want God to come into our lives? He would just kind of show up and fix everything. And then when God wasn't fixing everything the way that we wanted it fixed, wouldn't we have the tendency to go, "Hey God, that's not quite what I had in mind"? I think that's what was going on with Peter here. And Jesus finally turned around and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You don't have a clue. Your knowledge has not helped you a bit as to what I'm here to do, what my job is, and what the kingdom is all about. My kingdom is different than what you want it to be. And you're not in charge, by the way." Now, I'm sure he did it in a very loving and kind way, but he made his point. Did you get that? So knowledge is not going to help us with our unbelief. Worldly power is fleeting. Anybody know somebody that's been on the top of the world? Do they stay there forever? No. We could spend the rest of the sermon talking about people that have fallen from power. Help my unbelief. Godly power is service. And we want others to serve us. So there's this, when you finally reach this place in life where you have, enough power, money, prestige, whatever, and godly power is submission and service. It doesn't add up for us, and it didn't add up for the disciples, who had an entirely different understanding of what Jesus was here to do. We all know that relationship is the answer, not religious practices. And we talked last week, remember, about the 613 laws that the Jewish leaders had come up with over time to keep us, or them, from breaking the 10 Commandments. So Moses, what did I see? I read somewhere where Moses was the first one to download a file from a cloud. Something I should have written it down. But anyways, so he has 10 commandments, right? So we all know we could probably still recite the 10 commandments. Sammy, our 4-year-old, who's not here tonight, could probably recite the 10 commandments. But that wasn't enough for the Jewish leaders. They had to make sure, they called them hedge or fence laws, that they had to put around those 10 commandments to make sure that you would never break those 10 commandments. So now you have these series of fences that you have to jump over and get bad enough to break the 10 commandments. And I did a little more research, oddly enough, doing some other things, but there's 365 negative commandments, days of the year. Okay, so the real tricky question that the rest of you may not know, except for the ones I've told, that means of the 316 minus the 613, there's 248 affirmative laws, which means you have to do this. In order to be approved by us, you have to do this. 248 times. Where do you think that number came from? I won't leave you hanging. That was the number of body parts that they had come up with. Eyes and ears and nose and arms and fingers and toes and knees and elbows, whatever. They had come up with 248 body parts. So that's how they came up with the 613 laws. Anyways, fun fact from the Old Covenant, the Old Testament. The point is that keeping those 613 laws is not developing a relationship between you and God. In fact, keeping the 10 laws, the 10 commandments, is not really developing a relationship. The 10 commandments, ultimately, and we've talked about this before, was to show us that we couldn't keep them. We can't keep the 10 commandments. So we need something besides the law. And so here are all the Jewish guys going, okay, Jesus, you're going to enter in this kingdom and you're going to bring the sword in. We're going to be rulers and we're going to be rich and famous and we're not going to have to worry about anything anymore. But I can't really even keep the 10 commandments. But we won't worry about that because we'll have lots of money. His garments became radiant and exceedingly white, as no wanderer on earth can whiten them. Elijah appeared to them along with Moses, and they were talking with Jesus. Peter said to Jesus, Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. For he did not know what to answer, for they became terrified. Then a cloud formed overshadowing them, and a voice came out of the cloud. This is my beloved Son. Listen to him. So in all this amazing spectacle, I guess, of divine exposure, the guys kind of said, well, we got to do something religious here. Let's build some tabernacles. Let's do something religious. It's kind of the way I read this. You may have a different take on it, but to me, they didn't know what to do. They were afraid, so let's do something that we know, which is to build something religious. And really what God's saying here is this is about a relationship between a father and a son, a loving relationship. Remember when Jesus was baptized and he came out of the water? What did we hear then? Same thing. This is my beloved Son. So religion is not the answer. Help my unbelief. I believe, but help my unbelief. I can't keep 248. I can't do 248 things right. I just know it. My wife knows it for sure. And there's 316. I don't want every day I wake up with 365 days a year. I don't want to step on a landmine, with God. I can't live my life like that. I have to be in a relationship with Him. Because that's how He made me. That's how He made you, is to be in a relationship with Him and with each other. And I think that's what's so beautiful about the church, is that it's, it starts, oftentimes there's lots of pictures with a marriage and with a family and with each other. We can't keep each other under the law and expect to have a relationship with each other that's fulfilling and lasting. How do you stay married 69 years and keep each other under the law every day?
Ron traveled a
lot. Oh, right, he traveled a lot. Okay. I've been moved. IBM, we heard that the other night. Okay, I do believe, but, O unbelieving generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you? This is Jesus again. It reminded me of last week when they just fed the 4,000 with just a few loaves, and they had just a few days before that fed the 5,000, and now 12 of them are in a boat with the one loaf of bread, and they're all worried about what they're going to eat. And Jesus is going, oh, not again. Come on, guys. We can take care of this. Don't worry about it. Same thing here. Jesus is going. And this is all in context of when Jesus came back down off the mountain after this high and holy experience with his Father speaking to him from heaven, Elijah and Moses being in his presence, and he walks into this mess kind of where everybody's in disarray, and they were trying to heal this kid that was having seizures, and the disciples were going, we can't fix it. We don't know what to do. They could not help. So Jesus was just going, oh, come on, guys. How long have you been with me? What have you seen me do? Why can't you just do it? They brought the boy to him. When he saw him, immediately the spirit threw him into a convulsion, and falling to the ground, he began rolling around and foaming at the mouth. If you can, all things are possible to him who believes. So Jesus is basically quoting, the Father says, if you can help us, please, if you can help us, please help us. So Jesus repeats the Father's words, if you can, question mark. All things are possible to him who believes. Immediately the boy's father cried out and said, I do believe. Help my unbelief. This guy was being honest, finally. Finally, someone comes into the face of Jesus and sees that he's God and gets honest with him. Help me. Help us. We need you. We can't do this without you. Your disciples can't do this without you. Help my unbelief. He had to humble himself to do this. He said, take pity on us and help. It's that kind of humility when we get to a place in our lives where we can't do it on our own. We can't muster up the strength or the ability to follow the law. We have to come to a place where in humility and submission and obedience we cry out, help my unbelief. Jesus, I believe that you're God, but help me in my unbelief. God stiff arms the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. So God poured out grace on this man who got honest with him. I think that could be something for our church. A place where all things are possible. I do believe. Help my unbelief. Fear or childlike faith? You know, when you can't live up to something, there's a kind of a fight or flight mentality. We either want to fight with each other or we want to run and hide, run to something. I think we all go there. We still deal with that. I think we need to help each other lovingly through that process. It looks differently for us than it does for another generation or generation to come. So I think we all need help with our unbelief and the fight or flight fear that comes with trying to measure up, because we can't measure up. Fear or childlike faith. The Son of Man is to be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him, and when he has been killed, he will rise 3 days later. But they did not understand the statement, and they were afraid to ask him. If anyone wants to be first, so after Jesus had discussed this with them, they kind of like, okay, we don't understand that. Let's go talk about something else. Let's talk about who's going to be first around here. Let's get back to what we can deal with. I can be better than you. I can prove it. I can keep more laws than you. That's right where they go back to. Jesus just described what he had come to do, which is to die for us. So then you just, well, God, give me a little hand here. Thanks. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. You're kind of almost daring God to stay out of your life because you can do what the things you can do pretty well. And then when you need something, you just kind of, dial the bat, pick the bat phone up, say, I need some help here. Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe to stumble, it would be better for him if, with a heavy millstone hung around his neck, he had been cast into the sea. If your hand causes you to stumble, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life crippled than having your two hands to go into hell and into the unquenchable fire. So in other words, what Jesus is saying is, you can practice religion all you want, but it's not going to get you where you ultimately desire to be and where you long to be, which is in relationship with me, an eternal salvation that is secure, we all want security. And this world is an insecure place. I think we all look at security differently. Men maybe have security kind of wrapped up in their power and prestige and their jobs or whatever they can do. Sports is a good place to turn for men, women too. Security for women is making sure that they got all the groceries in the refrigerator and whatever else, or their job is set out or their career is set out too. I mean, there's all sorts of security that we need. We got to make sure that the things that we're doing, our renters are in the house that we have, if we have rental properties, or if our house is straightened up with our kids. None of these in and of themselves are bad things. We scored enough goals, we caught enough passes, we made enough tackles, we got enough sacks. We talked about that today. All of that is good and fun stuff in the relationship of Jesus being Lord in our place, being submitted to Him as Lord. And not us just calling Him when we need Him, but us being responsible to being humble and contrite and doing all things to bring glory to Him. So we dare God when we attempt to be God apart from Him. But when we rest in the truth of who He is, it humbles us. We recognize, like that boy's father, that we need help. Help my unbelief. So I think today, for me, I had to come to a place where I'm reading Mark for the 50th time, and I'm reading it differently now. And the context of, I still need God's help. And the older I get, the more I know that I need God's help. And the less I know that I can handle it apart from Him. I can't keep those 10 commandments. I can't keep those 613. I need help. I need Him. Jesus, I believe You, but help my unbelief. Let's pray. Thanks, God, that You love us. Thank You that You've given us Your life. You sent Your Son because You knew there was no other way for us. And we can pretend like we can handle everything and that we can get our needs met apart from You. But in reality, we're just daring You. And so I pray that we would get off, if we're on a treadmill or on the merry-go-round trying to do life apart from You, even claiming to be a Christian, I just pray that we would just slow down and stop for a minute and just ask You to give us some quietness with You. And we would I just ask that You would speak into our hearts. I ask You to speak into my life tonight, tomorrow, and the coming week. That I would just hear You speak, and that I would respond, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord, I hear You. I need You, Lord. Help my unbelief. I know if Your word is true, which I believe it is, that You can do all things through me. And I know that all things are possible through Your Son, Jesus Christ. So I pray that this would be a place where all things are possible for those that love You and are called according to Your purpose. And so I thank You for those that are here tonight. I thank You for the food that's been prepared. I thank You for the awesome worship and the fun fellowship that You have in store for us. And I just offer all this up in Jesus' name. Amen.